Hello and welcome to Herd. I'm your host, Kevin. Herd is an inclusive, affirming, egalitarian Christian community where we are celebrating the voices of all people and providing a space for their stories to be heard. You'll find us at www.herd.love with a link to all of our social channels. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment for all the latest updates on all of our future shows. I hope whoever you are, wherever you find yourself on the journey of faith, no faith, somewhere in between, you'll find something here that speaks to you. If you have any comments, questions, or would like to be on a future show, please contact us at hello@herd.love. And I'm so glad today to say that I have my friend, Bridge Livwatt from Alberta, Canada. Bridge, aka John's, been a great friend of mine for maybe about a year now. And he's coming out with his brand new album, Uncaged, July 14th on Apple Music and Spotify.
That is correct.
And this album is, he sent me a sample of it, and it's the funnest, most interesting. It's like underground hip hop kind of thing.
Yeah. It's funny because people are always like, what's your style? Like, what kind of music do you make? I'm like, I don't know. It's definitely got like some hip hop to it, bit electronic. There may be a little bit of rock in there too. But yeah, basically my producer, my son and producer, everybody has their son produced for them, right?
Of course.
Zandy, he just assembled a bunch of tracks, and I wrote some lyrics and did some rapping and some singing over them. There's actually one track that I did mostly myself, Hey 2. But yeah, the rest is all stuff that he created. What's amazing to me is I actually didn't think I had time to do music because I do have the 2 podcasts and I've got work and trying to work on my certification for work and all that stuff. But I had this idea for a song talking about people on social media and people on YouTube and everybody who has a platform who didn't really necessarily earn that platform, and how we're kind of like a monkey holding a gun. Like, we have the right hands to pull the trigger, but it's like, really, should we have that in our hands? And so I was like, I want to write a song called Monkey with a Gun. And I was like, just never get to it. And Zandy calls me into his room. He's like, hey, Dad, I created this track. And I listened to it. I'm like, that's Monkey with a Gun. And that's what basically started all of this.
Oh, so he wrote the lyrics to that? Or he wrote the music?
He wrote the music for it. Yeah. And then I wrote the lyrics for it. Yeah.
The lyrics on every song has its own, taste to it. It's you can't put this album under one genre.
I don't think so, no.
I mean, unless you caught it like underground or something. And Monkey and a Gun. So tell us the story. You wrote the lyrics behind that. I mean, it starts out brain, calm and sane, but bored. Oh Lord, I got to get saved. So
yeah. And so just a minute, I'm going to pull it up too.
Okay.
But basically, I don't have all my lyrics memorized, but basically for that, I was thinking about how we, when you're kind of sitting in your room or whatever, or like, that's basically when you get a taste for social media, is when you're, bored.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're looking to social media to be our salvation in those moments where we're
yeah, you're scrolling. You're scrolling to kind of to stay entertained.
Yeah, so it's like essentially we're looking for our salvation in social media.
Yeah. Get that dopamine hit.
Yes.
Picture scriptures, housewives, nerds, Mary Poppins crying, green stuff hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fun, yeah, because I was thinking pictures of scriptures and housewife nerds, that's totally Facebook, right?
Yes, of course.
And I don't know, Mary Poppins crying was a line that just came to me, and I just loved it the more I heard it. I'm like, I've never seen Mary Poppins cry, so really it's something unique.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
Yeah.
what here I'm trying to remember the "Don't At Me" I think was my first favorite song.
Yes.
But then when I got to was it "Hey Two" talking about your son? It was either no, it was "Keys" and "Litter."
Oh my
That
gosh.
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yeah, no, and that's a really interesting one. Like with Keys, what happened is I was thinking about
Keys was
how
really good. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
well, I'm glad you like it because it's kind of one of those songs that like we kind of thought, oh, it's not going to be that popular or whatever. But that song's really important to me because I was thinking about my son and how sometimes I can feel like he's got this pressure on him to be a certain way. It's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to have kids when I grow up. I don't know if I'm going to be this. I don't know if I'm going to be, whatever, right? There's all these things that he thinks we want him to do with his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this idea and I was trying to working with this image of like a father giving his son this beautiful classic car and saying like, here's the keys, take care of the car. But it's like, not because it's mine. This car is legitimately yours. I want you to take care of it for your sake.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what the analogy is trying to say like, I'm giving you the keys, son, shut up and drive. And I do feel like there's some good, I'm hoping I laid some good wisdom in there. And so it was fun to write those lyrics, but I was very deliberately sending a message to my producer when I wrote.
Well, I mean, it's cool because like you've got 2 years on me. You're 40. I'm 38.
Mm-hmm.
Your son, but you must have had your kids when you were like 23 or 24, I guess.
Yeah, around there. Yep.
Yeah. So like it sounds like you're in a different phase of life having a 16-year-old and you are, but then again, I'll be there in 5 years. So
yeah,
like
it's closer than you think. Yeah, for sure.
Shh, don't say that. Because she's a girl. And but no, yeah.
And it's fun to kind of like I find, and I don't know if you find this in your area of art too, but you'll create something and then you'll look at it later and be like, whoa, I created that? Like what? And so like one of my favorite lines of this song is live in the moment, love everyone. Don't let hate steal your joy. Forgive the haters, but don't let them win. Leave them loved, but annoyed.
No, it's I mean, as I was listening to it, I was visualizing you giving the keys to your son. Like,
oh, that's
like
good.
You said,
I'm so
a
glad.
classic car. You're like, all right, son, I've done my part. This is, now it's on you. And it wasn't like shame or pressure, to perform, but it was just like, I love you and this is all I can do. Like,
yeah.
But gosh, anyway. Okay, so let me go back here to Don't At Me, the fourth song on the album. Tell me the story behind that.
I think what happened with a lot of these songs is Zandy would make a track and then I'd come up to him and I'd be like, yeah, that's called Don't At Me. and so I just basically, most of these songs started with a title. Like Monkey with a Gun and Keys kind of were concepts that I had to begin with that I'm like, oh, that's such a good concept. I hope I can do it justice. But like with Don't At Me, I'm like, oh, it's just the name of a title of a song. So I actually crowdsourced on Twitter. I was like, I want to write a song, Don't At Me, but I don't want it to be racist or homophobic, or I don't want it to go to the wrong places. And so I'm trying to remember of what I actually got when I crowdsourced.
Wait.
Oh, don't say vase, I say vase. That was one that I crowdsourced. Sorry?
Help me understand. How could it be racist or homophobic? I don't
because Don't At Me is usually something someone says after they say something super controversial. And so I wanted to be controversial, but I didn't want to be, saying something against marginalized people. And so I needed to make sure that I stayed on that line. And even, if I was going to go, against the system, I didn't want to like hit below the belt necessarily either.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't want to like, and so I wanted it to be playful for anyone that listens to it. And I think the only thing that I think might ruffle some feathers is the line, I wear a rainbow MAGA hat. Because I kind of feel like that makes everybody angry. And I think it's funny because of that.
I super love Nickelback. I should have just turned the album off at that point. But yeah, I prefer plastic straws. Wear a dead rabbit's paw. So I mean, I think the idea, which that's like a dead rabbit's paw, reminds me of my childhood. So children of the '80s over here. But
Yeah.
but like, so the idea with that song is you have to be okay to play with ideas that are dangerous. Is that fair?
You know, it's funny. That's that. I like that you see depth in it because I was just having fun writing it.
Oh. Yeah, I've got a problem with that.
But I think you're right. I think you're very right that that's a great way of looking at it because I think I do find myself playing with ideas that are dangerous and I don't really know why I'm doing it. It's almost like I want to tease the elephant in the room, but I'll do it playfully and I often get away with it, which is crazy. Maybe not as much lately, but usually I can get away with it. And it's like, if you're playful enough, you can get away with saying things.
Well, yeah. And I think your intention is usually like intellectual curiosity, at least in my experience with you. And it's like, I don't think most people have issues with people asking questions. It's don't at me, you know, it's like, so let's see, was it Hurt Me the Right Way or Hurt Me Right Way or Become that was kind of the slower track on there? Without pulling it up, I can't remember.
Hurt Me My Right Way is the one with the ukulele. And kind of that beat to it, yeah.
I think that's one that I said you reminded me of the bare naked ladies.
Yeah. You know, I think really what really got into me when writing this one is I was like thinking I'm kind of sick of love songs that aren't realistic. And so I thought I'd write a realistic love song. And so it's just talking about commitment, but it's talking about like sometimes love isn't what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, it kind of comes at a price sometimes. So.
Yeah. And so it's like you hurt me the right way. And it's about how when you're together with someone, they can change you and it can be painful, but it's good.
So far with the album, I think you said that Become you've gotten the most feedback from that.
Not feedback yet, but
or not. Okay.
But that was my favorite track. When we were done recording, I'm like, I'm really happy with this track. This track is like, I think it's the best track on the album. Now, I mean, like the best track on the album isn't necessarily the favorite track on the album, you know, of everybody.
Yeah.
But for me, it's my favorite. And part of it is because I really challenged myself in the way I wrote the lyrics. And so it's just kind of like flipping phrases, basically. And so it's like, there's a question that I'm guessing is on everybody's mind, the same question I'm suggesting. I'm trying to think of a good, okay. I'm ceasing to believe it. Am I slowly going blind? If I'm believing that it's ceasing. So it's kind of like flipping some phrases, which it just was fun to play with. And I don't know how much people are going to notice this when they listen to it. But for me, it was just like really challenging and fun to write the lyrics that way. This song also, like one of my big things that I really like with music is music with different movements to it. And I like, for me, I do a lot of clinician work at a Christian school. I do some clinician work with their worship teams. And so I'll help them build dynamics. That's usually the biggest thing is like, okay, let's bring it down. Okay, let's build it, and there's got to be a build. And so this song is my favorite for that reason too, because it's got really nice shifts in movements to it.
So to the Christian school, where does your Christianity and your religious background come into play with the album? I do remember, I'm trying to find the lyric. I heard it about something regarding heresy.
Oh, if that is heresy, that is okay. Oh, wait. If that is heresy, that is okay.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, no. If there's inerrancy, that is okay with me. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So that actually, it's funny because that's Eccentric Electric.
Okay, number 2.
Eccentric Electric, the second track. The idea behind that song is this idea of mental health. and creativity. And I really believe, and I say this a lot, I believe that good mental health is striking the optimal balance between being and doing.
Mm.
And so it's like a lot of times as creatives, we get so stuck in doing that doing becomes who we are. So that doesn't really explain my... So I actually do mention heresy. Nope, gotta be heresy standing here next to me. And so I'm just playing with that notion, but it does kind of touch on religion a little bit, right? In the midst of this kind of like talking about creativity and everything. And I think the theme of this whole album is uncaged. And so what I wanted to do is look at 3 different aspects of being uncaged. That would be being uncaged ideologically, which I guess maybe don't at me with a little bit of tease that Donald Trump was kind of part of it. And well, really, it was kind of teasing everybody on that one, because the rainbow makeup hat kind of like, it's like, what? I don't know if anyone likes to hear that.
You pissed everybody off with that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that is being uncaged ideologically, being uncaged spiritually, and being uncaged creatively. Creatively. And it's like this idea that when we get in our cages, anything outside of it is unrecognizable. And that's what happens with religion a lot of times, is you're like in your little church, in your own doctrine. And then when somebody outside of there is like, oh, I've had an experience of Jesus, you're like, no, that doesn't fit in my cage, so that can't be Jesus. And so that's basically, so gotta be heresy standing here next to me. It's almost like I'm toying with religion and creativity at the same time, because the same thing happens with art, where it's like, well, no, that's outside of the cage. That can't be, like you're a 40-year-old guy and you're rapping. Like that's outside the cage. That can't be, right?
Yeah. Well, I just did an interview with Kristen Crouch, who is a friend of mine and an artist. And I think the day that this comes out, hers would have been the week before. So last Sunday. Okay. Yeah. I love speaking in the future.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's hard not to get ADD with you. So, because you always entertain my ADD thoughts.
That's great. I'm here to entertain.
What I loved about her interview was that she is an artist, like visually with paper and digital and all these things. And she was showing me how she created this painting, this image. And it was an action in Photoshop that was replicating itself, but she was putting in these images that were meaningful to her. And there's a lot of variables, but my point is, when it was all done, what I was taking away from it was that she was trusting this process to happen.
Yeah.
That like there was this process and she was a part of the process, but then there was a whole other element of the process that she was believing, hoping, having faith, assuming that something beautiful would come of it.
Oh yeah.
And so she knew that she had some sort of control, but she also knew that she had some sort of no control. And and I think the best part of that interview is when she talks about at the end of the painting, she went to go print it on metal, and the printer was getting stuck and she was frustrated. So she kind of yanked it out.
Yes.
And when she did, it created lines on one side of the painting, which actually makes the painting what it is.
Totally.
So in order to have art, you have to have creativity. In order to have creativity, you have to have the freedom to be artistic and to play with things, ideas, words that usually are, looked down upon or shamed or locked away. And so I feel like with this album, that's what you're saying, how far can I go with some of these ideas?
Yeah.
And in your own personal life. Is that accurate?
Oh, for sure. And I think, like I used to write very Christian. I used to be, like, oh, I want a Christian band that's bigger than the Beatles or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
well, just not the Beatles, because according to this song, you don't like the Beatles.
Don't At Me is definitely a character.
Okay.
Good point, though.
Yeah.
think the Beatles were
Let me see. I super love Nickelback. I think the Beatles were whack. So yeah, that's not going to work.
guilty. No.
Yeah, let's try this again. You wanted a Christian band as good as Nickelback. How about that?
Yeah. And I remember I actually, if you guys ever have a chance to go to norman2.deviantart.com. This is the first time I'm announcing
you got to spell that or
that
say
this
it again.
exists. Norman2, N-O-A or Norman 2.
Okay, Norman,
dot
the number 2.
deviantart.com.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, me and my brother created this character that just makes the worst poetry ever. And it's just terrible. Like, it's all misspelled, and it's just the weirdest thing. And we did this like in the early 2000s. And I was kind of toying with that while at the same time trying to write these like serious, Christian songs and all this stuff. And I had a buddy over to my house, and he looks at me. He's like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you my new song I wrote. And I play it for him, and he's like, why can't your stuff be like Norman 2's? Like, your Norman 2 stuff is so much better. And it's like, I didn't know how to incorporate like my deep self and my ridiculous self. And I feel like with Uncaged, it came together somehow. And it's like, so there's moments where this is deep, and then there's moments where it's just like plain stupid. Like, and it's just, it's incredible how it came out. Like, I'm shocked at some of this. And I mean, part of it is, the great part is that I could focus on lyrics and melody. Like, that's all I did on this album for the most part.
Yeah, well, and I love that it's an album, and well, I know that's obvious, but I guess my point is, I love that it's under the umbrella of Uncaged, and what you're saying is that you had both those elements in there, and you couldn't have really arranged it, but it kind of happened in the process.
Oh, it totally did. And I think, like when, I think we were probably halfway through recording the album when Zandy is like, hey, I created this track, and he shows it to me. And he said, it's called Cage. And I'm like, this album, it's called Uncaged. And that's when it dawned upon me. And I started obsessing over this idea of being uncaged. And it kind of was the theme that brought it all together. And it's become like such a big thing in podcasting. I keep talking about being uncaged because I'm like, that's such a cool concept. Because, when we talk about like, don't put God in a box. It's like, okay, well, I don't even know what this box means. But
yeah.
Don't put God in a cage. It's like, well, that's confining. I like that. And so this idea of being uncaged, I think it's just this idea of liberating people spiritually, liberating them ideologically, and liberating them artistically.
And with that, in order to liberate, you have to give them the freedom of living outside the cage. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always been said, like a bird doesn't know like if a bird's always been in a cage, they don't know what to do once they get out of it. So there's almost like, you've got to show people how to have some fun and play with ideas that maybe they were never allowed to play with.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, I it's funny, the name Bridge Live What, it's funny that you're like trying to figure out how to pronounce it and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? It's a made up name. And I mean, and it dawned upon me that I was like, Bridge Living Water. And I'm like, oh, Bridge Live What? And it just like those words came together, and I'm like, I want to bridge people to something fresh, some living water, right? And it's like, and so I want to be able to do that in, multiple ways, in those 3 ways I keep repeating.
Right? Yeah. No, I hear you. Mm-hmm. So I mean, is there, did I lose you? Oh no, you're there.
No, I'm still here.
What happened? So we've had a lot of these conversations about religion and deconstruction, and it usually goes something like this. Someone says, well, going to church doesn't make me a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes me a hamburger. I need to get rid of some of this. That's a Keith Greenism for you. I need to get rid of some of this religiosity, and I question some of the policies of my local church, and so they start to become uncomfortable with kind of like the form of religion, but they don't question. At first, they don't question like the elements of religion or the beliefs of religion. So they might still believe in, like in our circles, they might still believe in a triune God, and they might still believe in a resurrection and healings and all these things, but they don't but they believe that what man has done has kind of corrupted it. And then I think as you progress, you start to question some of those key elements of the faith. And then, so I guess at some point I've heard it described that people say they feel like everything begins to just fall apart at which point they don't even have anything to hold on to anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a very vulnerable feeling. Can you relate that to the album?
Can I relate that to the album? Let me think for a minute here.
Well, I mean, is that something that you've experienced, I guess I should say?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's like I was explaining this to someone once. I don't know if you've ever, like looked at a loved one, like, well, obviously your romantic partner, and just kind of like say, okay, I'm just going to pretend for a moment that I've never seen this person in my life, and think about what is it like to look at this person that I love intimately with fresh eyes. And I think for me, that's what the journey's been, is I kind of went through a period of like kind of deconstructing and kind of pulling things apart and saying, well, that doesn't make sense. And now I'm kind of in this reconstruction stage, and so like, even, like, that's why Eccentric Electric says, if there's inerrancy, that's okay with me, and it's like, which is a weird thing to say, but it's just kind of like, I'm like thinking, yeah, you know what? Sure. Maybe it's inerrant. I don't know. But it's like, that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just exploring. That's what it is. Being uncaged is just this continuous exploring. And it's like, I love what Richard Rohr says about, like, it's not that, the mysteries of God are impossible to know. It's that they're infinitely possible to know. And so that's what the journey is. And that's what the uncaged journey is like, you guys thought you knew everything in this little cage, but it's like, come out of the cage. Let's explore some things. And so yeah. And I mean, Become is another one that kind of touches on a bit of that, because at one point I say, can we find the magic words to get God on our side? Which I think it's pretty obvious that I'm kind of saying something about religion there.
So even the freedom to explore and to doubt in your mind is almost like a faith that's greater than a faith in some ways. Like, is that fair to say? I mean,
the ability to explore and doubt, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. The freedom to explore and doubt. I mean,
absolutely. And it's funny because it took me probably until I was like, I don't know, probably 16 or 17 to realize I could ask questions. Up until then, it's like, oh, if you ask questions, you're doubting and you're not having faith. Yeah. And I became a lot more inquisitive about a lot of things. And that was like young conservative John. It took me like years to unravel that, where it's like, no, this is God's party. You got to vote for them, right? And and I've kind of gone through different periods too politically. And I'm kind of at a point now where I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm apolitical. Like, I just can't, I can't do this, And so, but yeah, no, I think I remember I was watching this movie IQ. It's like a Meg Ryan movie.
Oh yeah,
that has.
I forgot about Meg Ryan.
What was that? Sorry,
I forgot all about Meg Ryan.
Yeah, I think we all did. Now, you ever do that like Google image search where you're like Meg Ryan 2020? Oh, that's what she looks like now.
Does she still have the short hair?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to look later.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's a scene where Einstein says to somebody, question everything. Yeah. And I was like, can I do that? Can I question everything? And it was like, and I had this sense that it's like, of course you can. Like, you're kind of an idiot if you don't, right? Yeah. And so I think like when I look back, that's probably where a lot of this started for me. Yeah. But it's funny because there was so many things I was spoon-fed that I just didn't question.
Well, you talk about being 16 and 17. So your son had just turned 16 or is 16, right? Mm-hmm. So do you see those same themes in his life or with his generation? Do you think they're going to have the same issues that we had?
Oh, big time. I mean, what's going on in this world right now is like nuts. Mm-hmm. We have a very divided society. And that's one of my things, like one of my biggest things right now is like trying to bridge that divide, but it is difficult. It is impossible, it seems. But I still feel like it's what I was born to do. So I'm going to keep doing it, even though it's going to get me in a lot of trouble. And I, you know, like I was talking to a guy today about masks, and he's like, yeah. And he said something on Twitter, and it's like, this guy, it's so funny because he made his name on Twitter privileged, and then whatever his name is, kind of as a slam at the whole idea of white privilege, right? Because he's very conservative. But he said, you know, he said something about like conformance and like bowing to the government by wearing a mask, like something along those lines. And I'm like, I see wearing a mask as a sign of empathy. And he kind of replied to me like, well, you see things that aren't there. And I'm like, huh. But it's like, there's no bridging that divide, right? Because it's like, everyone looks at him and says, you feel entitled and you don't care that you're killing people with your saliva and your mucus, right?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, he's like, well, you guys are just scared of the corona and you're just bowing to the state. And it's just
the big
like
government. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know, both are very much mischaracterizations of what's really going on. And so it's like, how do we bridge that gap? And so I think a lot of this is by doing your don't at me's and hoping that somehow, you know, like making people a little bit uncomfortable will break the ice and we can actually have a conversation.
Was that guy Canadian? Was he a friend of yours?
American. No, he's part of the GK network, the Gatekeepers podcast network. They, yeah, they're a fun bunch.
Is that sarcasm?
You know, okay, it's
I don't even know what gatekeepers mean.
When I see someone post that they are against social justice, that makes me very curious. And most people that are more on the progressive end of things wouldn't give those guys the time of day. But I've kind of explored some things. In fact, I've read their book, and it was kind of interesting to hear what they had to say. I think like when we talk about like systemic oppression and this idea of like identity politics and intersectionality, I think there are people that don't entirely fit that mold. And the way that progressives kind of push that narrative can sometimes like not fit, because it doesn't work for the factory worker who's white and Christian that got laid off from his job and they stop saying Merry Christmas. You know, like they're like, whoa, hold on, I'm the oppressed one, right? And so if we negate that entirely and we just keep moving forward with a progressive agenda and say, no, you're part of the patriarchy. And it's like, dude, I can't even feed my family right now. And you're saying I'm part of the, of white supremacy and all stuff, right? So there's something going on there. There is legitimately people who are hurting that lost their jobs and are mad that this pandemic happened, and all that, right? Like there's a whole story there. And so I'm exploring that. And I don't know if my progressive friends are okay with me exploring that. I don't know. Yeah.
I've said it before, like Trump won partially because we have an electoral college, but also because he spoke to a demographic that felt like they were not listened to. Exactly. And some of them, or maybe the majority, were like poor white folks. And they're like, the Democrats don't care about us. The Republicans don't care about us. But Donald Trump is speaking our language. He found a market. He found a market that he could speak to. And I still don't think Democrats have really learned their lesson from that, because I still don't see them as a party speaking to that sect of people. I feel like it's so much easier to just label and try to negate and get past. And that, and it was after the election that we started talking about things like echo chambers and coastal elites and things like this, and these sections of people that still didn't get it. And I almost want to believe that if you live uncaged, you're unable to be labeled. And there's a quote I love: once you label me, you negate me, because at that point you can almost control and you can kind of, mold me and what have you. And so I almost want to feel like if you live uncaged, that you can't make anybody very happy.
No, no, definitely not. But I mean, I don't know. It's weird because I've gotten away with being pretty uncaged on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And somehow people are still pretty cool with me usually. So I don't know. I'm just figuring it out. But I honestly, I'm intrigued to see if anybody can label me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that.
And I'm like, and I'm okay with people mislabeling me. Like for a while there was like, I think 2 or 3 weeks where people were replying to me and assuming I'm a woman named Bridget. And I was like, I'm just going to go with this. I don't care.
A lot of times when I go through a drive-through, I get, yes, ma'am. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't care.
How does the way I say
like,
cheeseburger sound like a woman? Sorry, go ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway. No, so you're okay not being labeled. Classic Enneagram 4.
Oh, I am classic, yes. See there, you labeled me. I like
it.
See, I like that label. That's a good label.
That? Yeah, I hear you. Well, also classic Enneagram 4 is this push and pull, and like you want to be understood and known, but you also want to remain somewhat mysterious. And and you recognize that in yourself, and it frustrates you probably just as much as it frustrates everybody around you. But you also know that there's something that just doesn't feel right when you're caged. I love to be accepted, but if you accept me for too long, you're going to scare the hell out of me.
Well, yeah. You know what's nuts? Today I was teaching a course on asbestos fiber counting. And it's like you go under a microscope and you count the fibers and you just keep going to different fields under the microscope. And there's rules for what qualifies as a fiber and what doesn't, right? And the way that you count, though, it's like just the weirdest method. Because normally when you do like a lab method, you do some kind of test on and you're like, this is what your value is, right? And you're like, this is how much benzene you have, or this is how much, dust or whatever, right? So with asbestos, though, you have to count each field and say, well, is that a fiber? Well, it's got the right ratio and all this stuff, right? But the thing is like, because it's such a human method where people just look under a microscope, the rule is, it's not that you count accurately. It's that you would count like anyone else would count. And you're trained. It's like, oh, you're counting too many. Oh, you're counting too little. It doesn't matter how much are there. You need to count like an average person would count. And it's almost like, what is that show? Is it Family Feud where they're like, survey says?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that. And I'm like, I have zero interest in what most people want or what most people think, because I think differently. I want to bring something fresh. And so it's just the funniest thing that I'm like teaching this today. I'm like, man,
I have zero interest in how many fibers you see.
Yeah. I'm just like, you know what? That is not a fiber. I don't care what most people say. It is not a fiber, So there's something in me that's like just so angry that it's like, I have to count it anyways.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because I was thinking about that. I'm like, no, I want to do something. I want to do something different. I want to do something that hasn't been done. And I feel like we achieved that with this album.
So what do you want the takeaway to be?
The takeaway from this?
Yeah.
I want to challenge people to think outside of their cages. And it's not necessarily that I want everybody to be uncaged necessarily, as much as I want people to be okay with uncaged people. I want them to be able to see that what they're doing is just as legitimate and maybe even more legitimate than what they're doing in their caged life. So hopefully there's some beauty in it, that you could see.
So whenever I used to buy CDs, I always liked listening to track 5, and I don't know why. I've never Googled to see if this is like a common occurrence, but I remember that track 5 was always really good. So Ghost, do you think that's going to be the most popular?
I don't know if it'll be most popular, but I love the concept. And that one actually did not come with a title to begin with. That was one, I was reading something over the summer, and they were talking about ghosts coming back to haunt them, I think. And it made me think, well, can we make peace with our ghosts? Is there something I can learn from my ghost? And just this concept of ghosts being our own past catching up with us, but learning how to make that happen in a good way. And maybe that's part of what uncaged is that you know, like, it's like the things that you thought were bad actually can be good. Because the caged thinking is like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Oh, we got coronavirus. It's really bad. And it's like, okay, so I'm stuck in my house. I got a little more time to finish my album. No biggie.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, basically, I guess maybe part of it is rolling with the punches. But yeah. And so there's in this song, I you know what was really fun is I liked going from the singing part, you know, if I think it is a ghost. And then to say, ghost baby, please, maybe. Like, I just love the cadence of that. That was fun to do.
Fun describes the album. I mean, if it keeps my attention, that's a huge, I mean, I can't sit down and watch an entire movie. My kids are like, really, Dad? I'm like, well, so no, it kept my attention. It was fun. It was good. It was challenging. Every lyric was something that excited me a little bit, you know,
good.
I mean, And I'm one of these people where wherever I hear something, I remember exactly where I am, where I heard it. So like I could tell you exactly where I was in the grocery store when I was listening to this.
That's awesome.
I don't know what that is. Well, so it comes out on July 14th, Apple Music, Spotify. The title is Uncaged, Bridge Live Watt.
Yes.
Bridge LIVWAT.
That's
so they
right.
can type in either of those and find it.
Yeah, you know, and I'm always, this is the Enneagram 4 again speaking. I love the fact that if you type in Bridge Live Watt on Google, I'm the only thing there because I came up with a unique name.
Well, speaking of Einstein, he said if you have one original thought in your entire life, you're doing pretty good. So
I must be doing really good.
Yeah, you're doing really, Between that and Rainbow MAGA hat, I think you've got your two original ideas.
Okay, I got to say that was definitely Zandy that influenced me on that one because I was like, what should I do with this MAGA hat? And I was gonna say purple or something like that. He's like, no, rainbow, and I'm like, yes.
I think and the other thing I was thinking about today, I think it's so cool that you and your son have this thing you created.
Yeah.
Product. He got to go through the entire process and you did it together. And now and every time he listens to this in 20 years, he's going to be searching some files on his hologram computer and he's going to be like, oh, look, there goes the album me and my dad did.
Yes.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be a second too. What was that?
Yeah,
we're already working on the second one. So it's kind of funny because it's like looking at this is almost like, you know, when you have like those actors that talk about like, tell us about the Avengers movie. And, you know, and it's like, that's like 3 movies ago that I made, you know? And so I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I got to think back to this because I've already moved on to the next project.
Okay.
And so, we do have a second one where we're working on, and I'm not going to say any dates for that one yet, obviously. Because right now, Zandy is also working on his album for Tirefall, which is his band. Very much influenced by like Green Day, Red Hot Chili Peppers. You've heard them, haven't you? Like you've seen probably some of the Facebook on it, maybe?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah, the stuff you posted.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun. So we got a single that they're working on, and so hopefully we'll have that soon too.
Oh, I love that the kids love the good stuff.
Yes. Oh, he loves the good stuff. It's crazy. Very eclectic in his taste. So I'm excited to see where this is headed.
July 14th, Uncaged, Apple Music, and Spotify.
Yes.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And where can people learn more about you?
Follow me on Twitter. I also have a Facebook page for Bridge Live Watt. So Twitter is Bridge Live Watt. Bridge, LIVWAT.
Sweet.
And you can find my Facebook page. I'm also on Instagram, but I mostly just post like ridiculous memes. So if you're into memes, my meme game's pretty good. So.
Pretty strong. All right. Thanks, John. I'll see you soon, brother.
Yeah. See you.